This story, titled The Hidden Lines Between Friendship and Betrayal, begins with a man named Daniel. Daniel was 56 years old, a man who had worked hard all his life to provide for his family. He had been married to his wife, Emily, for nearly 30 years. 3 decades of love, challenges, laughter, and building a life together. They had raised 2 children, supported each other through hardships, and weathered every storm life had thrown at them. Through it all, Daniel had always believed in trust. Trust was the foundation of their marriage, the glue that held them together. But now, for the first time in all their years together, he felt that foundation cracking beneath his feet. It had started subtly. A few months ago, Emily had mentioned her new coworker, Mark, in passing. Nothing significant. Just little anecdotes about conversations at work, the occasional joke she shared. Daniel hadn't thought much of it at first. Emily had always been friendly with her colleagues, and he had never been the jealous type. But then, things changed. It started with small things. She'd come home later than usual, saying she had gone out for a quick bite with a few coworkers. But when he asked who was there, she'd always mention Mark first. Sometimes he was the only one she mentioned. Then she started texting more often, a smile playing on her lips whenever she received a message. When Daniel asked, she'd brush it off. "Oh, it's just Mark. He's funny. He tells the best stories." At first, Daniel told himself he was imagining things, that after 30 years of marriage, he had no reason to feel insecure. But then came the friend dates. The first time she told him about it was after the fact. She had come home later than expected one evening, casually mentioning over dinner, "Oh, by the way, Mark and I grabbed lunch today. Nothing big, just a quick meal between meetings." Daniel had paused, his fork hovering over his plate. "Just the two of you?" he had asked. Emily had nodded, completely unbothered. "Yeah, it was nice. We talked about work, life, just friendly conversation." Something in Daniel's stomach twisted. He didn't say anything that night. He didn't want to overreact. But as the weeks passed, the pattern continued. She never asked if he was okay with it, never mentioned it beforehand. Instead, she would casually drop it into conversation after it had already happened, as if it were nothing. And maybe it was nothing. Maybe he was being insecure. But then why did it bother him so much? Why did he feel this growing sense of unease every time her phone buzzed? Why did his chest tighten when she came home later than expected with an explanation that always included Mark? One evening, as they sat on the couch watching television, he finally found the courage to ask. "Emily," he said carefully, keeping his voice even, "do you think it's fair that you keep having these one-on-one outings with Mark and only tell me after the fact?" She turned to him, her brow furrowing. "What do you mean? It's just lunch or coffee. It's not a big deal." Daniel took a slow breath. "I'm not saying you can't have friends, but when you're going on these outings, just the two of you, and you don't even tell me until after, it makes me uncomfortable." Her expression shifted, first confusion, then frustration. "Daniel, are you saying you don't trust me?" His heart sank. "It wasn't about trust, was it?" "I trust you," he said, his voice softer now. "But I also think that there are boundaries in marriage, and this feels like you're crossing one." Emily let out a sharp breath, shaking her head. "Daniel, this is ridiculous. Mark is just a friend. You're acting insecure." And just like that, the conversation ended. But for Daniel, the feelings didn't. If it was truly nothing, then why did she dismiss his feelings so quickly? Why did she not care that it hurt him? The next time it happened, it hit him harder. Emily had come home smiling, her coat still dusted with raindrops. "Mark and I grabbed dinner after work. It was a crazy day and we both needed to vent." Daniel clenched his jaw. This time, he didn't hold back. "You had dinner alone with him? Again? And you didn't even think to tell me beforehand?" Emily sighed, rubbing her temples. "Daniel, I told you. It's just a friendship." "A friendship you don't tell your husband about until after the fact," he shot back. Her eyes narrowed. "So what? You want me to ask for permission every time I have a meal with someone?" Daniel felt his pulse quicken. "It's not about permission, Emily. It's about respect. It's about making sure that your partner isn't blindsided or made to feel like a fool." She crossed her arms. "You're reading too much into this." And with that, she turned away, leaving Daniel standing in the kitchen, a storm raging inside him. That night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. For 30 years, he had loved this woman, trusted her, believed in the foundation they had built. But now? Now he felt like a stranger in his own marriage. The next morning, as Emily got ready for work, Daniel made a decision. Emily, he said quietly, watching her from the doorway, if this is just a friendship, if it really means nothing, then why do I feel like I'm losing you? She froze, her hands pausing over the buttons of her blouse. For the first time, something flickered in her eyes, something unreadable. But she didn't answer, and that silence told Daniel more than any words ever could. Daniel sat in his truck outside his office, gripping the steering wheel, lost in thought. The morning had been quiet, too quiet. After his words to Emily, she had finished getting ready without another word. No kiss goodbye, no reassuring touch, just silence. He had spent the entire drive to work replaying their conversation. Was he overreacting? Was he making something out of nothing? Or was his gut telling him something he didn't want to admit? For the first time in 30 years, Daniel felt like he was competing for his wife's attention. Not against an affair, not yet, but against something far more dangerous. Emotional intimacy. Because that's what this was, wasn't it? It wasn't just about the meals, the texts, the inside jokes. It was about the fact that Emily was turning to another man for connection, for comfort, and she didn't seem to care that it was breaking Daniel apart. A moment of clarity. That night, Daniel tried a different approach. As Emily sat on the couch scrolling through her phone, he sat down beside her. "Can I ask you something?" His voice was steady, but firm. She glanced up, wary. "What?" "If the roles were reversed," he said, "if I had a female coworker, and I was going on friend dates with her, just the two of us, how would you feel?" Emily hesitated. It was brief, just a flicker of doubt in her eyes, but it was enough. Daniel leaned forward. "Be honest," she sighed. I don't know." "You do know," he pressed, "and I think it would bother you." She set her phone down, rubbing her temples. "Daniel, I don't feel anything for Mark. It's just friendship." "But it's a friendship you keep separate from me." Emily opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time, she didn't have an immediate dismissal. Daniel exhaled slowly. "Look, I don't want to be the controlling husband. I don't want to tell you who you can and can't be friends with, but I also don't want to be in a marriage where my feelings are ignored." Emily looked down at her hands. "I never meant to make you feel that way." "Then help me understand," Daniel said gently. "Why do you feel the need to have these one-on-one outings with him? Why do you never invite me? Why do you only tell me after?" She swallowed hard, looking away. And that was when Daniel saw it. Not guilt, not regret, hesitation. The truth finally. Days passed. The conversations continued, but they went in circles. Then one evening, Daniel came home to find Emily sitting at the kitchen table, her hands clasped together as if she had been waiting for him. "I need to be honest with you," she said quietly. Daniel's stomach twisted. She hesitated, then finally spoke. "I like the attention." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. Emily's eyes were already filled with tears. "It's not about cheating, Daniel. I swear. But Mark makes me feel seen. He compliments me. He listens to me in a way that—" She faltered. Daniel's chest tightened. "In a way that I don't?" Emily shook her head quickly. "No, it's not that. It's just, after so many years, I guess I forgot what it feels like to be noticed in that way." Daniel felt his heart crack, the pain unbearable. "Emily," he whispered, "do you even want to fix this?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I don't know." And in that moment, Daniel realized this wasn't about Mark. It never had been. This was about something much bigger. Their marriage had been breaking for a long time. He had just never seen it. And now he had to decide, was there anything left to save? If this story resonated with you, like, comment, and subscribe. What would you do in Daniel's place? Could this marriage be saved, or had the damage already been done? Share your thoughts below.